I'm back in the Canadian Rockies for the video this morning. And this morning I'm on the second of the 3 Vermilion Lakes here in Banff. And what I'm on the lookout for today is a really nice piece of foreground with Mount Rundle here in the background of my image. So what I really want to find is a nice open piece of water or some really nice ice formations. But as you might be able to tell from the lake behind me here, I really mainly have this huge area of just kind of flat white. Not super interesting. And to be honest with you, it never used to be this way. So what's changed here at Vermilion Lakes? When I used to shoot here in 2016 to around 2018, I'd almost always find interesting compositions, whether that was at the start of winter or right bang in the middle of it during some of the coldest temperatures that we'd have. Even at night with temperatures so low you got light beams in the sky, probably below -30, you could still find a good reflection and some open water. As the years have gone on, I've definitely been less successful at Vermilion Lakes. Sometimes finding just the smallest hole of open water, and sometimes no open water at all. And yeah, let's be honest, it also looks like I had better luck with the clouds back then too. So you might be able to see behind me just here that there is a little bit of open water here this morning. There's a small little patch here, and then we've got a little bit extra down here as well, right by the edge of the lake. That's not really open water, but there's some cool kind of ice patterns in that one down here. But 5 or 6 years ago, there used to be a lot more when you came down here. You'd get these huge weaving ice patterns going all the way through the lake. So it's a bit of a shame that we don't have that, but we are going to try and find a composition for this morning. Hopefully we'll get a little bit of light that comes up. But yeah, let's check it out and see what we have. So I think I found what's going to be my best option for this morning composition wise. And I'm actually going to be using this little inlet coming in from the sulphur stream that runs into the second Vermilion Lake. And this is one of the reasons why you can get a little bit of open water here. But obviously, like I mentioned, not as much as we used to be able to get. But the water coming into here is actually a little tepid. I wouldn't say warm, it's -12 out today, but it's definitely warmer than you would expect for a day this cold. So that's keeping a nice little piece of open stream out in front of me, kind of leading in to Mount Rundle. There's actually a little bit of pink in the clouds now, actually, if you just have a look over here, which is kind of funny because every forecast I checked this morning said it was going to be 100% cloud. So it's almost the complete opposite. There's very little cloud in the sky. But let's get set up here and then see if this composition works out. I think we're definitely going to have to get nice and low on this one. And to be honest, I'm going to have to shoot really wide to get some of this foreground in because it's not as big an area as I'd like. So I'm going to shoot super wide. And I might end up doing some perspective stacking just to get the mountain looking a bit larger, because at 16mm to get this foreground in, it's going to end up looking pretty small back there with Mount Rundle. But I think if we go super low and right in the middle of this somewhere, we might be able to get a pretty nice shot. The clouds maybe aren't as interesting as I would like this morning, so I'm going to try doing like a really long exposure by popping on this ND kind of 10-stop ND filter. Just pop that on the front of the lens there. Maybe I can drag this out to a couple of minutes and then get some really nice movement in the sky. Clouds aren't moving super fast, but it might work. I think it's worth a try anyway. Definitely not the best image that I've got of Vermilion Lakes, but I think with that long exposure for the sky and a little bit of focus stacking of this foreground, we might get something that turns out all right. Let me know what you think. So if I'm honest, I hadn't actually put that much thought into how Vermilion Lakes has changed over the last 5 or 6 years until just recently. I actually thought that over the last few winters I've just kind of been really unlucky and timed it wrong and not got here when we've had those amazing kind of open bits of water or those incredible kind of intricate ice formations and ice patterns that we've had in the past. And I hadn't put much thought into it until recently when someone on Instagram, a local photographer who runs workshops out here, actually kind of posted a recent image from Vermilion Lakes and pointed out that it's kind of not as good as it used to be in many ways. So I did do a little bit of research as into why that might be. So I found another little bit of open water down here. kind of a bit further around the lake. And this year, it's actually been a relatively mild winter, I'd say. Like, we've had a lot of plus temperatures here in the Rockies and in the city as well. So I think because of that this year, we have actually got a few little bits of extra open water that I haven't found in previous years. Certainly last winter and the winter before, you'd be lucky if you found like a very small round opening. Now, there's actually a different reason for those extra open holes this year. One that at the time I wasn't aware of, but all will be revealed later. And there's good evidence of that as well. When I did a bit of research the other day, it turns out the last couple of years we've had quite a lot of what is called winterkill here in Vermilion Lakes. So winterkill is essentially like a mass die-off of young fish, and that comes from the starvation of oxygen from a lake or a river. So I've come down here in the past as well, and you might find a very small open piece of water, much smaller than this, and it would just be full of fish. And those fish are obviously trying to get oxygen, but because the ice is thicker and there's a blanket of snow across the whole lake, there's just not enough oxygen penetrating into the water, or enough even sunlight coming through to the water to kind of give the plant life the ability to make oxygen. So because of that, we're getting much more winterkill, and that's been in the news a little bit because it's been attracting coyotes and wildlife, and there's been closures around the trails around here. And last year it actually attracted the boss, which is the biggest bear in the Banff region. And the boss was down here in March, kind of feasting on all those dead fish that were, or those fish that were trying to get oxygen, or the ones that had passed away in that really small little area. So a real concentration. I mean, because of that, we can definitely tell that something has changed here. I think the ice is getting thicker and there is more snow settling on here. But I think it's primarily that ice getting thicker over the last couple of years that has maybe changed that. But what I am going to do just quickly as well is actually head on down to the third Vermilion Lake, just to see what that one's looking like as well at the moment. There is often more open water down there year round, but just the kind of angle you get as you go further around the lakes, you tend to get less of Mount Rundle. So it's maybe not as good a composition, but we'll go and check it out and just see what's going on down there as well. As you can tell, there is quite a lot of open water down here at the third Vermilion Lakes this morning. So there's still some good reflection actually. And a lot of that is actually just due to the sulphur spring below me here that's running into the lake. It's much larger than the kind of little inlet that you get down at the second Vermilion Lakes. And you might be able to see some of the steam actually rising off of the lake. So there's still reflections to be had here. But like I said, you do lose a little bit of that Mount Rundle. That's a lot of open water for this time of year, and I think that is partly due to the fact that we've had that kind of milder winter where we've had those plus temperatures. But for the second Vermilion Lake, like I said, it's changed. And when I was reading up on it, it did kind of mention that some of that might be due to beaver activity further upstream, kind of damming in the river. From my own anecdotal evidence of shooting down at the second Vermilion Lake for the last kind of 6 or 7 years, I would say that the water level definitely has risen a little bit over the years. And that could definitely be due to that beaver activity up and downstream, maybe making that water level rise. And probably due to a little bit of the Bow Glacier melting as well and having more water flow into the lakes. And because that water's risen, it's meant that any kind of warm water running into the lake doesn't have as huge an effect. And that ice is becoming much thicker. When it was thinner, it would kind of melt and thaw out and create those patterns. But now it's thicker, it's just kind of freezing and staying solid pretty much all winter. I thought I'd jump in kind of randomly in the middle of my own video just to say, after I shot this video this morning and I thought I was done, I went for lunch with my friend Will. And I was talking about how Vermilion Lake had changed and how there's only small sections of open water at Lake Vermilion 2 now compared to how it used to be. And he said, oh, do you know why that those holes are actually there? And I just assumed it was because they didn't freeze over, but it turns out it's otters. There's a lot more otters that have moved into the area here now, and they're actually kind of keeping those open holes to obviously come up for air from. And this morning, there was no signage out or anything like that. And I saw little bits of maybe kind of blood and guts from fish by the edge of these holes. And I did see a few footprints that I kind of assumed were maybe just dog or kind of a small dog or a small coyote. But it must have all been otters, and that was my own naivety, which was a bit silly because I was breaking a bit of a rule then, unfortunately. There was no signage up this morning, but now Parks Canada have put a few signs up just saying to keep your distance from those holes, so to keep about 30 metres away. So that obviously doesn't lend itself brilliantly for photography compositions around here, but obviously it's for the best of the otters. So I think we might try and set ourselves up kind of 30 meters away from a hole. Will's come out with his very long wildlife lenses and see if we can get a little clip or some footage of one. But yeah, interesting stuff. There is some open water, but only because of the otters. Just as I'm walking past here on the road, you can definitely see down by those holes that there has been some otter activity. There's definitely a little bit more of a kind of the red blood from fish on the edge of the holes, and also some fresh footprints, and you can kind of see where they've been dragging their bellies or dragging their tails along as well. None of that was here this morning, and obviously I can't stick around too much here. I'm actually just walking on the road, but those holes are too close to the road to really be sensibly be allowed to like wait around and see if you see one. But yeah, keep that in mind. If you're coming to Vermilion Lakes to shoot those holes and use them as foreground, you actually can't get that close to them at the moment. We need to look out for the otters. Now we're set up about 30 meters back from one of the holes in Vermilion Lakes that it turns out the otters have been using. And I don't know if I've really got enough reach on my 200mm lens to get anything good, but you can see Will here has got a professional setup. He's got two big 500mm lenses. So we might just wait here for a little bit. They come up for air every kind of 8 or 10 minutes. So we'll wait here for a little bit and maybe we can catch an otter, or a glimpse of one at least. So we sat and we waited. We waited for about an hour and nothing happened. I'm not sure if I have the patience for this wildlife photography stuff. But eventually a magpie came down to peck off the remaining fish guts left behind by an otter. And then we waited some more. Then finally, after almost 2 hours, we got a very brief glimpse of a family of otters coming up to eat. So I already filmed the outro for this video earlier on this morning, but I felt like I had to do it again. Because originally I was talking about whether this second Vermilion Lake was still worth coming to for photography. And naively this morning, when I thought those open holes were just kind of natural open holes, I was kind of thinking, yeah, it's not as good as it used to be, but it's still definitely worth coming to because you had some good foreground options, a little bit of open ice, maybe not as interesting as it would have been 5 years ago, but still pretty nice. But now knowing that those holes are formed by the otters and that we do need to keep our distance from those ice holes and from the otters themselves, I actually wouldn't recommend coming down to the second Vermilion Lakes for photography at this time of year, at this moment, because you're not going to be able to shoot up close to those holes, and you definitely shouldn't be. I mean, I walked around some of them this morning, but I didn't actually choose all of the holes to shoot by, which was kind of lucky, and hopefully I didn't disturb any otters too much. But like I said, there is now signage up as well saying don't get too close to those holes. But this is obviously still a great little location down here in summer. And you could shoot certain parts of the lake here as well in winter, but you're not going to really get any open ice anymore, which is a bit of a shame. So visit the third Vermilion Lakes just further down the road. You're going to get those really nice reflections, a little bit of mist and steam coming off of the lake as well. And then here, a great location for summer. But there we have it. The lakes have certainly changed. They are still worth visiting and they are still worth photographing. Just be considerate of the wildlife. But if you are coming out here to Banff and to the ICEFIELDS Parkway or the Lake Louise area and you want to know where to shoot and where else in the area you can shoot that's not Vermilion Lakes, then do check out my photography location guides in the link below. But once again, thank you so much for watching and hopefully I will see you on the next one.